Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, another video on therapeutic drug monitoring. And in today's video I'm planning to talk to you about digoxin. Now digoxin is one of the popular medications that we have to monitor its level, and we see a lot of digoxin in clinical practice. It's one of the drugs that scare health professionals, doctors, nurses, pharmacists scare when they see digoxin due to the high risk of toxicity and all the adverse effects that may happen for patients on digoxin. Now, if you're new on this channel is all about clinical pharmacy practice. If you want to become a clinical pharmacist, or if you want to advance your career, if you want to learn more about clinical practice, this channel is for you. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so that you get notified of future videos. We have so many videos on how to become a clinical pharmacist in North America and anywhere in the world, of course, and how to advance your career. We also have our own online course. It's a clinical pharmacy course, which is more extensive and has more information if you're interested in that. Now let's get to our presentation for today about digoxin. Now, as you all know, digoxin is a cardiac glycoside usually used to control atrial fibrillation or for patients with heart failure. Now, digoxin is a positive inotropic, and it also has some negative chronotropic effects. The mechanism of action, I'm not going to go through that. That's basically basic pharmacology that you know about, but it basically inhibits the sodium potassium ADPase enzyme, leading to various beneficial effects that we just mentioned earlier. It also stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system via the vagus nerve, leading to a sinoatrial and atrioventricular node effects, and that's how it decreases the heart rate. So when given orally, it has a really good bioavailability of about 90 to 100% for capsule formulations. However, the liquid formulation is a little bit less in terms of bioavailability, so only 70 to 85% of the liquid elixir of digoxin, and the tablets are even have lower bioavailability of about 60 to 80%. So when you're converting digoxin dosing from oral capsules to elixir, for example, because the patient cannot take capsules for any reason, or cannot take any oral solid dosage forms, you have to take into consideration the bioavailability. If the bioavailability of the elixir is lower, you might need to give a higher dose using the elixir, higher than what the patient is receiving in capsule formulation. The onset of action is about 1 to 2 hours when you give it orally, and about 5 to 60 minutes when given intravenously. And we usually do intravenous digoxin in acute cases when we're trying to control a patient's atrial fibrillation. We've tried everything else and we're unable to do or use other medications, so we will in this case give a loading dose of digoxin in the form of intravenous administration. The peak effect for heart rate control is about takes about 2 to 8 hours, and if given orally, it will be about 1 to 6 hours. So I'm sorry, it's the other way around. If given orally, it's about 2 to 8 hours to reach the peak heart rate control effect, and of course intravenously will be faster, so about 1 to 6 hours to reach its peak effect on heart rate. That means when you give the drug, just don't expect it to work right away. You just have to wait for a few hours in order for the drug to reach its peak effect. Half-life of digoxin is really long. It's about 30 to 45 hours in healthy adults. Now, if you have a patient with kidney disease, you should expect that the half-life will be prolonged. The long half-life means also steady-state kinetics only occurs after 6 to 10 days. So if you are planning to order a digoxin level to look at the level of the drug in the blood, you should wait for a few days before you do that in order for the drug to reach its steady state. 6 to 10 days is the average, so you can order a drug level after a week to have a sense of where you're at, where your patient at in terms of drug levels. Also, the redistribution phase makes levels drawn sooner than 6 to 8 hours after the dose kind of uninterpretable due to ongoing redistribution to target tissues, and this is something unique for digoxin. So serum concentrations are likely to be higher than expected if you measure it too soon after a dose. So once you give a dose of digoxin, you have to wait 6 to 8 hours before you order the level. Or if the digoxin dose is given only once a day, which is usually the case, just do a trough level just before the next dose. When to measure digoxin level for therapeutic drug monitoring? Usually, we only measure digoxin level at the beginning when we initiate the drug, and which is about 6 to 10 days after initiation. Like I said before, this is because it takes time to reach steady state. And sometimes we also do order a level after dose changes to ensure that the serum concentration reflects steady state. The usual reference range is between 0.5 to 1 nanograms per milliliters, or 0.6 to 1.3 nanomoles per liter. Now, this is another drug that's reference range could have different units depending on where you practice, which country, and which guidelines do you follow. In the States, digoxin levels are measured in nanogram per milliliter units. In Canada, it's measured in nanomoles per liter. So depending on where you are, you should make sure what units you're using or your laboratory is using in order to be able to interpret the level correctly. Now, if I have a level of 0.5 in Canada, that would be low, because it's a different, if I'm in the States and I have a level of 0.5, if I'm in Canada and I'm looking at an American unit system showing me a level of 0.5, it will be low, or it will show me that the level is low. Or I will interpret the level as low, because the lowest in Canada is 0.6, or the lowest range, I should say. Now, since digoxin is mostly renally cleared, we need to adjust the dose and closely monitor the levels in patients with impaired renal function, which I mentioned earlier as well. That's just to avoid the drug accumulation in those patients, which can lead to toxicity sooner.